Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, June 6th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, in which people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words HeartLand Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that, before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-on Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. And if you have any of those to share with us, we greatly appreciate your doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, and or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you through an email, we'll address it on the internet show. And then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. If you are able to join us live, we have our current format is that we're on Zoom, and if you open up a Zoom browser window or you call one of the many numbers that Zoom makes available, our meeting ID is coming up here, 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. When you call in, it should have you muted. If you're calling on your phone, it's *6 to unmute. And if you're on your tablet or laptop, there are icons to show you how to unmute yourself through the Zoom app. So, welcome to those who are joining us. If you're new to the show, I hope that intro was sufficient to give you some bearing about what we're doing here and why. And I should say that I'll announce it a few times today, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Beginning on Friday of next week, I will be absent. So there won't be a first hour of these shows for about 10 days because I'm going on a trip. And it's my determination that my time is going to be better spent in my practice and prepping for the trip rather than preparing best of shows for while I'm gone. So we did have a support group last night. We will have a support group this coming Tuesday. We will not have a support group on Thursday, a week from yesterday, or the following week, either Tuesday or Thursday. But I will be back for the Tuesday group on the 24th and the Thursday group on the 26th of June. So, what comes to me to share today is this kind of things have been bubbling up. There have been discussions on the first hour and discussions in the second hour and discussions in the support group. And so the thing I wanted to share before we get back into reading from the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg. And I've been doing the reading there with commentary. But before we get back into that, just a whole confluence of comments from people and discussions that I've been privy to, both on the first and second hour of the internet show and our support groups, is begging me to read something from The Way of Mastery, in the early going in The Way of Mastery, literally on the 5th page of the actual text. And for more about this, you can go to the mindshiftersacademy.org website, and there are dozens of shows I've done where I read The Way of Mastery with commentary. And they're actually the audio files of me reading The Way of Mastery without commentary, so you can get it either way. But in the first lesson in The Way of Mastery, at the bottom of page 5, it says, the way of the heart is not the way of the intellect. This is all about the way of the heart. This is all about an invitation to start interacting with the world and your life, both your internal and external world and your life, from a different perspective. And it says, the way of the heart is not the way of the intellect. For indeed, the intellect, or that aspect of your mind, was never designed to be your master. It was designed to be the humble and, if you will pardon the expression, very simple, very stupid servant of the awakened heart. It's just a tool. And the next paragraph says it defines the awakened heart with the same kind of words it uses to define capital L love. The heart is that which feels all things, embraces all things, trusts all things, and allows all things. And it says the same thing about love. Love embraces all things, trusts all things, allows all things, and thereby transcends all things. It also says the heart is that in which your soul rests eternally. The heart is that which is beyond space and time, and is the spark of light in the mind of the Creator, which is called Christ. Only in that will you find the peace that you seek. So again, it's not a person Christ, it's this mind energy. It's this state of mind which embraces everything and is constantly expanding. So the next paragraph gets to the point I really wanted to make here. You will discover that the pathway of awakening is not a pathway of avoidance, but indeed is a pathway of truthfulness. It is not a pathway of accomplishment and pride, but a pathway of releasing from the consciousness. Listen closely, pay attention to your breathing, watch how this might strike you. Releasing from your consciousness every hope and every wish to be special. Now, the Western mind, when it hears something like that, either rebels against it, or it revels in it and then wants to grovel in the dirt and say, yes, I'm not worthy, Lord, etc. All of that stuff that's been programmed into people from different religions. So just try and breathe and soften into this. We're in the process of trying to unravel all of the conditioning and the trivialities that have been shoved into the intellect, the way of mastery talks about it. And in that unraveling, we're going to have to encounter all of the different ways that we want to put somebody else up on a pedestal, or we want to see that ourselves are in a pit, or we want to see ourselves on a pedestal and somebody else in a pit. And so the mind, the conscious logical mind, the intellect, has been programmed with language, has been programmed from the beginning of its experience in the physical with all of these distinctions, these artificial, arbitrary delineations and distinctions, one thing from another, one thing better or worse than another. And by the time you get 2 lessons on in the way of mastery, they're calling us, they're inviting us to dismantle every judgment about good or bad, every judgment about right or wrong. And the Western mind, if you're like most of us who've been trained in the Western mind, your mind wants to explode. It wants to argue against that, wants to fight, wants to wrestle with it. But notice the tension in your body. And I'm going to read this line again. It is not a pathway of accomplishment or pride, but it is a pathway of releasing from your consciousness, of undoing the conditioning of your mind that holds every hope and every wish to be special, or to see yourself as having made progress. Just let that sink in. Here's a spiritual path that says, quit trying to think you're making progress. Well, what do you do if you're not making progress? If you're not falling behind, if you're not making progress, if you don't compare yourself to others, if you're not measuring, what is the deal here? One of the people who comes to our support groups has a favorite Guy Finley story. And I'll bring up the Guy Finley story. Guy Finley likes to tell stories about roving reporters, spiritual seekers who report on what they find. And this one reporter heard about this town where there were more missing person reports than any other town in the US. And this was shocking because it's not just, 10 or 15% more. It's, several orders of magnitude more. People they just go missing. So the reporter goes to this town and he's kind of nervous because, with so many people just disappearing with no sign of them, he doesn't want to just drive right into town. Maybe he'll be the next one. So he's on the outskirts of town. He's observing things and he sees at a park that there's a person sitting on a park bench. And so he starts observing. He's got a nice big camera with a telephoto lens, so he's quite a distance off. And he's observing, and all of a sudden, on the shoulder of the person, just pops into existence a tiny little tailor with, the cushion of pins and the needles and the tape measure and a tiny little clothing tailor. And the person looks over and nods and smiles at a little tailor sitting on her shoulder. Next thing you know, there's one pops up on the other shoulder, nods and smiles, and of course the tailors do what they're doing. They're taking measurements and they're assessing. And next thing you know, there's 4 of them, and then 8, and then 16, and then all of a sudden the person just gets sucked right into the ground. Well, this process repeats itself over the next week that this reporter is there, trying to keep a distance, trying to observe through his telephoto lens. And the closer he gets, the more he starts to realize that at first, when the tailors appear, the person smiles and nods and is in agreement. But you know what else tailors have besides their measuring tapes? They've got pins. And so pretty soon after there's 6 or 8 or 16 or 24 different little tailors, they're sticking pins in the person. I go, ow, that hurts. And then there's so many tailors that they just get sucked into the ground and disappear. Well, our reporter is, trying to send messages out to get help, but happens to be right near somebody when this breaks out, and is about ready to run over and start, batting the tailors away and save the person's life, when the person's got like 8 or 16 different tailors and a couple pins come in, and all of a sudden the person turns to the tailors and says something, first to one side and then the other, and instantly all the tailors disappear. And the reporter is in shock. And then the person sits for a while on the bench and then gets up to walk away. And the reporter races after the person and says, "Oh my God, you got to tell me this is magic. Are you a magician? How did this happen?" And the person says, "What are you talking about?" And the reporter says, "Listen, I've been here for over a week and I've been watching people disappear, and it's these horrible tailors and they suck people down and they're gone forever. And you were in the middle of that process and you just turn and say, I've got to know, what did you say? How did you get rid of all those tailors?" And the person said, "Well, it's nothing really." And the reporter says, "Oh, it's a lot more than you understand. I've got to know the secret. What happened?" And the person said, "Well, it's nothing really. I just turned to the tailors and said, I've decided to stop measuring myself. I don't need you anymore." I've decided to quit comparing myself to some gold standard or some parental figure or some societal expectation. I've decided to quit shoulding all over myself, shoulding. Guy Finley, in another set of stories, has a summary line that says, "The vast majority of your psychological and emotional pain and discomfort is the bitter fruit of a comparative life." Now, again, what's prompting me to take this detour from A Walk in the Physical and the questions we were reading? I've been hearing people in various levels putting other people up on a pedestal. I've been hearing people who don't just say thank you for the work you're doing, but say, "Oh, you're a magnificent soul," etc. And it's brought to mind several things. There's a spiritual teacher's name, I believe, was Stuart Wilde, and in one of his books that I read, he talked about how, not too long after you write a book or two about spirituality, um, with a little bit of notoriety, pretty soon people are coming out of the woodwork and they're trying to tell me about how their guru is truly enlightened. And Stuart Wilde said, I got so sick and tired of hearing that from people that I started replying with this invitation. Let's get your guru and go to his parents' house and live there with in his family of origin for a week. And at the end of that week, we'll see who's enlightened. What's the point? The point is that the only significant difference between you and anybody who has ever lived, and I include in this Michael Ryce's reverence for Yeshua and his infinite wisdom, the only significant difference between you and any person who's ever been on the planet or ever will be on the planet is the degree to which either of you are able to live in the realization that we are all the same. Now, in our Western mind, in our cultural training, in our habit of comparing and shoulding and idealizing, we have a lot of work to do to unravel that. And so we often vacillate or flip back and forth between this I'm better than you and oh, I'm worse than you. And we have people who might have a great difficulty accepting a compliment. I have been accused of having difficulty accepting a compliment. I have not really had any difficulty accepting compliments for quite a while. I had to deal with a lot of issues around that in my undergrad and the 5 years between undergrad and grad school. And then I really had to dig deep in my grad school years and my years of having my own therapy done to me, the analysis, psychoanalysis, Jungian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm fully capable and easily, to my way of thinking, able to accept a compliment, acknowledge it, and understand when it goes beyond a compliment to someone being put on a pedestal or someone being referred to as being special. And the greatest of the teachers that have ever resonated with me have all said at some point in time some version of, why do you call me good? Only the good is good. Only all it is good. And so clearly I've been hearing enough of these little references to comments that, at least to my eye and ear, they go beyond thank you for the work you're doing. Or they misattribute benefit that they're receiving from applying the tools, and they're attributing that benefit to the work somebody else has done. Oh, it's because you have this radio show. Oh, it's because you're donating your time to these support groups. That's just not the case. And I can demonstrate it to you by showing you the numbers of people that I've had in my office that have only been there for 1 or 2 sessions, and they left thinking this guy's nuts. I'll never go back to that bonehead again. Or the people who've shown up for the support groups once or twice, and it's not my cup of tea. So if you apply the tools and your life gets better, it's only because you applied the tools to make your life better. No one can do the work for you. And while some people can get credit for showing up and doing the best they can while they're there, that is not what's responsible for any benefit you receive by applying the tools in your life. And if you listen closely, you can listen to Dr. Michael Ryce. He was just talking the other day about his It's just so coincidental. Yesterday and the day before, he was talking about his lesson from from the Course in Miracles. It's titled, "What is the World?" And oddly enough, without me knowing that had been the topic yet, because I hadn't listened back to his shows because there was a delay in putting them up, last night in the support group, that's what we listened to. His 40 or 45-minute YouTube segment on what is the world and how to do forgiveness. And if you listen if you listen closely, he'll slip it in from time to time that while the Holy Spirit is there, while there is this elemental force specific to humans that each of us has access to, that's there to break off the effects of your errors in thought and guide you to truth and happiness. While it's there for everybody, it will not overpower you and fix you unless you ask for help. Unless you pick up the tools and use them, the tools have no impact on you. He was talking about when you hold a place in your heart where you refuse to extend love to someone else, you're hiding a place in your heart that needs healing. He's quoting from the Course in Miracles. So the Holy Spirit can't come and heal you. When you start talking about the way of mastery in the Q&As, there's a section where they ask about the healing that was supposed to have been attributed to Yeshua. And J.M., supposedly, ostensibly channeling Yeshua, says, you know what? In those rare cases where they did follow-ups on those healings, what they discovered was it didn't hold. It was rare for those healings to hold because it wasn't Yeshua healing those people. And as soon as the person with the ailment gave up believing the picture that Yeshua was showing them about their true nature, their wholeness, their true nature as love, when they gave up holding on to that picture, they returned to the picture they had of themselves as flawed and damaged, etc. And then the ailment would return. And the message is, it's not Yeshua healing anybody. It's Yeshua holding up a mirror. And if the person's willing to actively look in the mirror and see their true nature and then start out picturing that, the disease and the defect falls away. But as soon as the person says, oh no, I can't do this, it was all Jesus, it was all Yeshua, now he's gone away and I'm too weak and I can't maintain that image, then the ailments returned. It's all through the Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery. You have free will. You have choice, which is why it makes sense that you need do nothing. There's a whole lesson in the Way of Mastery about you need do nothing. And they go on to explicitly state, because if you did need to do something, that would mean in that moment you're not free. You don't have freedom. So to come back to the original statement that this little sidebar, this little side trip down some rocky trail, give up every hope of being special or of making progress. Now, the Western mind just reels when it hears that. But if you listen to Guy Finley, you hear the same thing. He says, listen, if you're hoping for a time when you'll be more loving, when you'll be more compassionate, you're sunk. There is no future where that's going to happen. You start to realize the truth of who you are now and what you're doing to block your awareness of your true nature now, and everything changes. But if you keep thinking, well, if I keep doing this and if I keep working at that and maybe someday I'll be, the Way of Mastery has the very same kind of comments. If you have the plan that someday maybe you'll be able to be like Yeshua, you're sunk. It just doesn't work like that. You already are whole and complete just as you are. And the only thing that you can do to improve your present moment situation is, as Michael likes to quote from the Course in Miracles, is to look for and find the blockages to your expressing it, to feeling it and knowing it in the moment, and remove them. And in that moment, you have your full-on, active, life-changing awareness of your true nature as the energy of creation expressing in form, and it is a game changer. And in the next moment, if you forget that and you buy into the negative thoughts, it changes the game the other way. So I realize we're about at the halfway mark, and I just want to reiterate, we welcome comments and questions, answers, refutations, soliloquies. Just unmute yourself and speak up at any point in time, whether I seem to be in the middle of reading something or a monologue, because most of the time, the questions and comments present such a positive synergistic effect that we dramatically increase the chances that this interaction will get labeled as a highlight show. So, Linda, did you intentionally unmute?
Yes, sir. How are you today, Tim, Dr. Tim?
Well, I was hoping you could tell me if you've been listening for the past few minutes.
I have definitely been listening, but you're not going to depend on my answer for how you feel, right?
How can we support you, Celinda?
I would like to support you for this moment. What you are saying is right on, and I want to share with you that a long time ago, when I took Yeshua off the cross, I
So to
knew
speak.
he was no, so to speak. I knew that he was no higher nor lower than myself. I got that with him. And I have been following people, and I will get enamored with people, but at some point I get very clear, oh, this is another soul like me, and they're here to benefit me, and I'm here to benefit them. So when you said all this morning, what I realized is that in our day-to-day lives, in my day-to-day lives, I remember and then I forget, and I usually forget when I'm when I have stressed myself, and when things aren't going, quote unquote, the way I think they should. So anyway, I just realized, you told me, you didn't tell me, you suggested to me in the support group last Tuesday that maybe I could do a worksheet on my daughter, Larissa, and my feelings about our relationship. And I started to do that worksheet, and I got into really deep sadness. It wasn't grief, it was like emotional heart heaviness, sadness, because I had not known what I know now, and so I didn't have the tools to consider her a blessing, to consider her a gift from Michael, and to use that awareness in my relationship with her to build a really strong bonded relationship, which I didn't at that time know how to do. So what you said about the future, about measuring ourselves to the future, I realized when you were talking, it's no different with the past, because it's all one present anyway. And that's interesting. It's all one present. I love that double meaning for that word. And I realized that I've been carrying this grief, sadness, and before it was really grief, physiological grief. And then I just suddenly realized, wait a minute. Doesn't it amount to, do I want to keep feeling this sadness, this burden, this heaviness that doesn't allow me to breathe or even look at myself with love, or because I failed, or and I must succeed? And I just said, no. Would I rather have sadness and all of its effects, or would I rather be happy and joyful? And so I just said, I'd rather be joyful. I choose joy. And it just it just lifted. It was amazing. I wanted to share that with you. And so now, and the cat is continuing to be my guru, quote unquote, my teacher. And I love that quote by Mr. Wilde, or whatever his name is, that about go live with them in the bedroom for a week or two with all of the family members there. Because that's true. I see that every time I go back to family. I say, okay, here's school. I just wanted to share that with you.
All right. Yeah, I as you were talking, I was thinking about some shows that have happened since 2011, once we started the internet show. At one point in time in the first few years, I believe it was, there were some people calling in from Denver, Colorado, maybe not Denver, but the Colorado area. And the one woman was trying to follow the work, and she was talking about how she had a grief support group that was just so valuable to her. And she talked about how every once in a while she would have this huge, intense, cathartic outpouring of grief and crying and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And it just felt so good to be able to do that in that supportive community. And it led to Michael talking about some different potentials. Like, what if you get introduced to the idea that your grief is self-created, that it's literally the byproduct of your pouring mind energy into a specific thought pattern. And of course, most people don't want to hear that. There are very few people that I've heard or seen get introduced to this topic that buy into it. But the experiment, the thought experiment that Michael presented was really rich for me. It was the concept that imagine you've got one of these 55-gallon drums and it contains your grief. And every once in a while, you pour so much mind energy into the thoughts that generate grief that the drum gets full and starts to spill over. And then you go to this grief support group and you dump it out. And of course, it makes this big mess, and there's all these tears, and there's this shaking, etc. And then you feel so much better because your drum is empty now. And then you pick up your drum and you go home. And as you live your life, every once in a while, one of those sad thoughts comes and you pour some mind energy into it. And pretty soon your drum's about quarter full and it gets harder to move around because you got to carry it with you everywhere you go, etc. And eventually it fills up again. You got to go back to the support group and then dump it out. And Michael Ryce said, what if the drum itself can be dismantled? What if the drum is a product of your thoughts about how you have to have grief and it's normal and it's natural, and if you lose a child or if you lose a lover, that you got to grieve for at least a year or three, or that deep depression is okay? What if you entertain the possibility that those thoughts themselves and the mind energy you pour into those thoughts are literally what's creating the drum? And if you dismantle the drum, then when the grief thoughts come, you don't stash them in the drum and pour mind energy into them. You just experience them, breathe through it, and it flows through, and you're not carrying the drum around, and you don't build to that crescendo where you need some kind of enormous catharsis on a regular basis. What if? So that's just something that popped into my brain when you were talking. And I wonder if someday in the not too distant future with AI, we'll be able to go back to the archives and You know, if they were all transcribed into a transcript, and then the AI bots could search, and then we could find that. Maybe that'll happen, or maybe we'll just have to keep having our own active questioning and reproduce it in our own little moment-to-moment exchanges.
I think I prefer the latter. But whatever. Have no preferences, as Michael Singer says. Stay totally neutral.
Well, not necessarily that. He says, he doesn't say that. He says prefer everything.
Oh, prefer
and
everything.
enjoy everything. Enjoy your ability to be here and have whatever experience life brings to you.
Yep, I'm working on that. Two thoughts that I have, if I can keep my cat quiet. She can't go outside because there's a dog here that loves to chase cats, so she's not happy. I'll try to say these really quick to her background music. One is that I was at a Dark Skies meeting one time when I lived in Pine Valley, when we did, and there was another lady there that one of the members got really upset and never came back. And this other lady said, well, you know, it's just about a flat plane relationship. And we listened, and she said, yeah, flat plane, you know, one-dimensional, nobody's above, nobody's below, nobody's in charge, nobody's in control, and we're just all in this little group together, trying to find our way through to becoming the dark sky community. And and it was all wrapped around authority, that this one member had taken the authority to initiate some action that she should have, reference to the whole group. And I just caught that, and I thought, oh, what a sweet way to look at things. And I've been practicing that ever since. Flat plane, nobody above me, no authority over me. I forget, of course, and then I have to go back to the drawing board. I choose to go back to the drawing board. And the other thing, so when I give you accolades, I just wanted to share with you that as far as I am aware, I am just thanking you and appreciating having a family of love, that I don't have to keep going back to the past and saying, oh, if I could just find my family, if I could just get back to if I could just go to live with the Hartwigs instead of the Hayeses. And so sort of like that moment flash of, where are you? Are you in the present? The present has all the potential, all of the possibility. It's right here, Celinda. Would you rather carry this sadness around forever, or would you like to just be joyful, just be happy? And I'm sure that I will get a lot of more constraining situations in which to learn that lesson better and better, and I will learn to appreciate them by asking and being willing for help from wherever it comes. And the other thing I wanted to share with you is that I suddenly had this visualization this morning that I am a very touchy-feely person, and I cry very easily. And I could say, oh, I have a low thyroid, and it's all the thyroid's fault. Or I could just say, you know, we cry tears for a reason. We cry tears from laughing. We cry tears from frustration. We cry tears from grief. But we also cry tears because the chemicals released in those tears are healing. And I was just trying to fight my tears from coming all the time because people thought I was grieving or something. But I can cry profusely at a ballet, at a beautiful song. And I'm thinking, if I'm crying from joy, aren't I still releasing those same other chemicals also? But isn't that still a releasing process, a healing process for anything that doesn't belong in my cellular structure? So I just ask you that possibility.
Well, I don't know an answer, but I would encourage you to choose the answer that serves you best.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've been learning a lot, and I feel like I've been sharing too, so I feel really good about it. I feel really flat plain about our family of love, wherever it shows up for me.
All right. Anything else we can support you with today?
No, carry on, dear sir.
All right. Well, has there been any comment or question stirred by this interaction with Celinda?
Not by Celinda. I am Susan.
Awesome. How do you
thank you.
pronounce your last name, Susan?
My last name is Fluick.
Fluick.
Yes,
Welcome.
Fluick. Thank you. And I just finished the 9-day intensive with Michael, and I'm so relatively new into this work, but I'm loving it. And just want to go back to the question that you just posed around what if we can remove the drum? And
Remove the drum, right, that we
Talked
store
about the
all of
drum,
our
right? That
grief
instead of
energy in.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I've been doing this work intensely prior to meeting Michael in my own way. And so this, of course, as a student is ready, the teacher appears. So the next part is this Aramaic forgiveness process to go deeper. And just, I've realized exactly what you said. Within me, in the content of my own mind, there's emotions that exist or that are sitting in the non-conscious being. And then I replicate experiences to find that within myself so I can bring it up for healing. And just recently, in fact, this morning, I realized, oh my gosh, I married 2 alcoholics. And, I'm no longer married.
I'm sure it's just coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. But also what's really interesting is the energetic pattern that's being replicated from the family system carbon-based memory that Michael talks about. And so there's a reframe of my mind occurring that, and I know he says this, it's not the outer world that's creating what I see, it's the inner world that's creating what I see. So I can bring it into healing and remove everything that's in the way of the presence of love. So I totally resonate with what you said about going within to remove the drum. And that it could be lifetimes old. It could be, I believe in reincarnation, or it's all past, present, future, or I was the ancestors, that I'm at the cause of what I created in my ancestry. And so just trusting in that and having the faith and knowing as it shows up, oh, just another opportunity to go deeper into my healing without blame. And just
Well, and so have you heard Michael talk about regulatory speech?
Yeah, and yes, he might have, but can you remind me? In fact, he has to.
So regulatory speech in Michael's system of thought is that there's a part of your brain that actually listens to what you say. As weird as it seems to have to say that, right? There's a part of my brain that listens to what I say. So as I speak, I'm programming my mind's beliefs and solidifying them.
Okay.
So there's 2 aspects to regulatory speech. And I like to talk about both of them. One of them is that the more I say something is true, you were making me angry. I say, you were making me angry. That's making me angry. That's scaring me. I'm programming my mind to believe that people and things outside of me cause my emotions. And the more I say it, the more I solidify or add energy to that belief, which is really just a thought pattern that's well rehearsed inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 things we like to tell people about the regulatory speech. When we say something and we recognize, oh, wait, I just spoke as though I think this person out here is causing my anger. The first thing I want to do is catch it and state it more accurately. Oh, it's more accurate to say, I generate a lot of anger with the interpretation I place on what they just said or did, with the meaning I'm giving this. It's either generating the negative, angry emotion in me right now, or it's the same vibration of something that I downloaded and have been carrying around with me for years.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I do is I state it differently. So now I'm peeling off a layer of that conditioning. Instead of saying you're making me angry, I say, oh, you know, when that happened, I chose an interpretation for it that's negative, and it's resonating all of this anger in me. So now I'm reprogramming my mind to a more accurate description of the dynamic that's actually happened. The second step I do with that is I can make a note. Hey, you know what, Tim? There's a part of your mind that still believes people and things outside of you cause your emotions. That would be a good thing to put on a reality management worksheet or 12 and do some rounds of EFT tapping. So I get at actually undoing those really well practiced thought patterns that have crystallized into a belief.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's another whole aspect of regulatory speech, and that is that it is revelatory. It reveals to me what's actually running inside of me. So if I say, one of Michael's favorite examples of this is he says, you're planning a trip. And you're like, right now, I'm planning a trip to go to Seattle and Southern Oregon and Northern California. So
Wonderful.
I wouldn't say to people, you know, I'm not going to China next week. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, think of all the places I would have to name that I'm not going. So if I start talking about how I'm not going to China, all that means is there's some part of my mind that's thinking a lot about China and either wishing I could travel to China or whatever. So as you were talking, you said, I want to do this without blame, which means your mind is resonating blame.
Oh,
And
yes.
so you can change that, catch it, and say, oh, I have a lot of blame, right? And that's why
Yes.
it just came up.
Thank
Let
you.
me choose a different word. Let me choose a word like, I want to do this not without this or that, because whatever I focus on, I'm adding energy, creative energy to, right?
Yes.
And so I want to use a word that represents what I'm working towards. I want to encounter this experience with allowance and surrender and acceptance.
Acceptance that's the word that fits for me is acceptance. I want to counter this experience with acceptance.
And so I state it that way, and then I do the worksheets on, oh, you know what? I've got a lot of blame. I got a lot of mind energy stuck on, blame thoughts.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. And it's interesting because at the workshop with Michael, he kept pointing out, so I would say something, and then would laugh at me because I'd be talking away with my voice, but my body is doing this. I'd say I want to do this, but my mind's going like this as I'm talking. So he, of course, so could see it so clearly. I could not because it's unconscious to me.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
thank you
And
for
and
bringing
it's
that forward.
unconscious to you because there's a part of your mind that doesn't want you to see that.
Yeah,
Doesn't want you to see the head
yeah,
shaking, right?
yes, yeah. Yeah, yeah, and there was a lot over that was my body would do stuff that I wasn't even conscious of, which he helped to release. But yeah, so thank you for identifying the drum because that it is just plucking out the root rather than just weeding it. To actually go if there's a weed in my mind, to be able to go to the root and pluck out the entire weed so it doesn't come back, rather than just doing one little strand at a time. So
Yeah,
one.
I had a powerful experience in graduate school. It's one of the best tools and teachings that I've ever encountered, and it didn't come from a professor and it didn't come from a book. And it's about these days on the mindshiftersacademy.org website, it's labeled as a process for grief and loss.
Okay.
The other name I have for it is how to say goodbye to good people without saying goodbye to good memories.
Mm, okay.
And essentially, the essence of why something like that might be useful or some would say needed in our current Western world is because when we experience a change in a relationship or a loss and we generate all of this pain and fear and sadness, then we have to go on with our lives. So we have to push this pain and fear and sadness away. So it's not like right here, blocking my ability to focus on life. What we don't understand is as we're driving around and we see something that reminds us of our loved one who's gone, and we get that stab of pain and we go, look, I can't cry now. I've got a big meeting I got to go to, and I can't let myself feel that because I'm sure it'll overwhelm me and I'll never quit crying or I'll go crazy or whatever. So I push it away. But what I don't realize is on the other side of that coin of sadness is the happy memories, is the joy, is the life learnings. And when I push away the pain, I push away the good stuff too. And if we do that long enough, we get to the point where our only seeming connection to the other person is our grief. And I've literally had people say to me, I don't want you to take away my grief because it's my only connection to the one I lost.
And
And
interesting.
this process that's available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website offers a different alternative.
And how does one, hang on a second, in the case of that, like even if I looked at,
How does one what?
how does one hold on to, like you said, in order to deal with saying goodbye to the bad, the people and keep the good memories? And I'm just using myself as an example because my previous husband, we've been divorced for quite a while, but he's still the father of my son, one of the alcoholics, and a good man, but there's aspects of drinking. So how does one hang on to that and still say goodbye, but still have them in your life?
You might want to listen to this. So
Okay.
there's a workshop
Okay.
that I presented it for years, and I finally, I think it was back in 2014 or 2015, I finally got a decent recording of it. And I present the recording there in 2 1-hour segments.
Okay.
The first one is sufficient for some people, but there's also a PDF file you can download. And the PDF file is simply a list of categories that you can use to do this process, to stir up the
Okay.
things that you might need to sit with and breathe through and cry happy and sad tears about.
Okay.
The
Sounds
essence of that process is just to demonstrate to yourself that it's perfectly safe to do that. And then you're no longer, shoving it away and trying to race on in life.
awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
Well, thanks for being here. You're very welcome. This is your second or third radio show. Hope it's the beginning of many more. And I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false.